So you're learning how to play hammer and you need a good build for it that does some good damage numbers, but the problem is a lot of the builds out there use adrenaline and you're still kind of bad at priming shots. I don't blame you. Priming shots takes some real practice to get good at. But to play the adrenaline builds, you need to be good at priming shots. So here's a non-adrenaline hammer build that does put up some really good numbers so you can get used to playing hammer and still do good damage while you get better at priming. So let's jump down in the game and take a look at this build. All right, for the weapon, we're going to be using History's Burden. This is the Chronovore hammer. I'm using this because we're going to be assuming you're learning how to play hammer. So this is going to give you that extra revive. We're going to be using +3 fire and +3 berserker on the hammer. Now you can swap out the fire and the conduit that we have on this build for reuse if you want to go +6 reuse with this build. That's perfectly acceptable, especially if you don't want to deal with the issues with fire draining your health if you're not getting enough big burst damage in. For the special, we're going with Mighty Landbreaker. This is going to give you up to a 35% damage bonus based off the quality of ammo you use. For the mod, we're going with Extended Clip because we're going to be learning how to prime shots. So if you're priming 2 shots in your thing, this is going to still give you a grand total of 4 on the landfall. And then for the bond, we're going with Break of Dawn. This is going to give you +3 cunning and a 12% chance for an extra strike. For the Omni Cell, if you're running fire, you're either going to be running Iceborne or Bastion. If you're not running fire and you're running reuse, you can go with pretty much any Omni Cell you want, depending on your playstyle and your skill level currently at the hammer. For the lantern, I'm going to default to Skarn's Defiance on this one with +3 conduit, but like I said, you can switch this for reuse and switch the fire out in the weapon for reuse too if you want more attack speed. And if you're playing with a group that's going to be getting some part breaks in, it doesn't hurt. You can also switch the fire and the conduit out for catalyst if you want some more consistency and you're willing to use tonics, and you're taking this into some more higher level content. For the helmet, we're going with the Dark Watch. This is going to give us +3 cunning, and we're going to slap a +3 berserker cell in there as well. For the chest, we're going with Time Weaver's Robes. This is going to give us +3 overpower. We're a very stagger focused weapon, so +3 overpower is going to be really helpful with this build. And we're going with +3 rage because we're going to assume you're learning how to play hammer still and you're going to get hit, but also if you're running the +3 fire, this rage is going to be beneficial to you because fire does trigger the damage buff on rage. For the gloves, we're going with Torgador's Brawn. This is going to give us +3 overpower, and we're going to put another +3 rage cell in there so that there's no cooldown necessarily on rage, and you can keep that up with fire. For the boots, we're going with Chrono Treads. This is going to give us +3 pulse, and we're going to put another +3 pulse cell in there. For the tonic breakdown, we're going with Blitz, Frenzy, and Ether Drive. You can switch one of these out for an assault tonic if you want more stagger damage in this build. But I'm going to show you another alternative way of getting extra stagger damage to control the fight better with this build too, by sacrificing Rage for Knockout King. For the perk breakdown, we've got +6 Berserker. This is going to give us -300 hit points, but we're getting some of that back from our Slayer's Path, and we're also getting 100 of that back from the Omnicell Iceborne in this case. After you deal damage, you gain 3.5% damage for 3 seconds, and that stacks up to 10 times. Then we've got Cunning +6 for +10% critical strike chance and +30% critical strike damage. Overpower, which is giving us +40% damage versus staggered behemoths, which they should be staggered a lot. We're playing a hammer, right? +6 Pulse, the 5th hit of your weapon is a critical strike, and you get another 15% critical strike damage. +6 Rage, once every 15 seconds when you take damage, deal 20% more damage for 15 seconds. Now, if we're running the fire variation of this build, that's going to be up pretty much 100% of the time. If you want to switch out fire, I would also recommend switching out rage for something like Knockout King just to get more stagger control or something like that. Running rage without running the fire cell, it just doesn't have enough consistent uptime, no matter how much you're getting hit. Now, in the default version of this build, we've got +3 conduit. When you use your lantern, you gain 8% attack speed for all slayers for 10 seconds. It's not bad. Reuse is going to be better, but if you're playing this solo, getting part breaks with hammers, not necessarily the easiest thing to get done. So conduit might have better uptime, but your mileage may vary. Then we got +3 fire. This is going to give us 10% attack speed and 15% movement speed. But the problem is with you, whenever you hit the behemoth, you're going to lose 3% of your max hit points. We're countering some of that hit point loss by running Berserker, so our max hit points are lower. You could take this all the way to +6, and then you're going to be losing 5% of your max hit points, and you're going to gain 20% attack speed. The problem is when you do stuff like the hammer spin attack, that is going to count as multiple hits, and it's going to reduce your hit points rather rapidly, more than you can overcome with Iceborne. But let's take a look at an alternative version of this build that's not using fire if you want more stagger and more control and you're not comfortable with the fire mechanic of this build. Now in this version of the build, we switched the fire cell in the weapon to a reuse cell. We switched the lantern cell over to a reuse cell. We switched the rage cell from the Time Weaver robes over to a Knockout King cell. And we switched Torgador's bronze cell that was a rage cell over to a Knockout King cell as well. So in this change, we lost conduit +3, fire +3, and rage +6. But what we picked up was Knockout King +6, which is going to give us 30% stagger damage increase, and after dodging an attack, your next attack within 5 seconds is going to deal 100% more stagger damage. And we gained reuse, which when you break or assist in breaking it apart, you have a 90% chance for all allies to gain 20% attack speed for 30 seconds. And if you don't pass that 90% chance roll, you're going to get a 10% attack speed bonus for just yourself. All in all, that 10% is better than Conduit, but it relies on part breaks. So this is more of a party play mechanic in this regard, because the hammer's not the best at breaking parts, and you're definitely going to want to focus on the head more than anything else. Now in this gameplay footage, I'm probably going to be running the version with Knockout King and reuse rather than the other version with fire. I've been playing the fire version. It works perfectly fine. But I feel like more people are going to gravitate towards the version with Knockout King and Berserker and reuse rather than the one with fire, because you're going to have more consistency with fire on the attack speed, but this one's going to give you more control over the behemoth and less micromanaging your health pool for the extra attack speed that you're going to be getting from fire. So you're losing out on some consistency with fire, and you're going to be focusing on trying to get those part breaks with the aerial slam attack that causes the ripple of ammo across the behemoth. Hammer is definitely one of the harder weapons in the game to master. It's easy to play, but it's definitely hard to master. And I feel like this build is going to give you guys a comfortable starting point to start learning hammer while you're learning how to prime your shots better. One thing to keep in mind though, once you do learn how to prime your shots with hammer, I would definitely recommend moving over to something more adrenaline focused for hammer. It's going to cause you to have to micromanage your stamina bar more, but it's going to give you more overall and more consistent damage with the hammer once you get those prime shots pretty much mastered. So you're getting 2 primes for every combo at a minimum. And you could throw in a 3rd prime if you can pull it off, but it's definitely harder to get that 3rd prime attack off. One thing we did want to focus on with this build for newer players is getting that extra attack speed in there, because hammer can definitely feel slow. The combos are long with hammer, and not a lot of people are going to have an easy time getting that full combo off without the extra attack speed until they've had more practice with the hammer and more practice fighting specific behemoths with the hammer. I have a how to play hammer tutorial if you guys want to check that out. I'm going to leave a link for it in the video description as well to give you guys some pointers on some tips and tricks for hammer players. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this gave you a good starting point to kind of work on your own hammer build, make some tweaks and changes with it. This build's actually pretty flexible because it gives you the ability to run a +6 insight however you want to run it. It also gives you the ability to switch out pulse or cunning really easily for a different finesse cell if you want to run a different finesse cell in here. And it's giving you some flexibility on the brutality cell too, so you can run either Knockout King or Berserker or Rage, and it gives you some real flexibility on the type of brutality cells you want to include in this. You can even convert this build over really easily to run Earth in that option if you want to run an Earth build with Hammer. I don't recommend it. Hammer is not one of the weapons that plays really well with Earth, although I wish it was, because I think running Earth with Hammer would be a lot of fun if it was a little bit more viable. It's just not that viable right now. And I would really appreciate if you guys like the video. It really helps get my content out to more players in the Dauntless community. And also don't forget to subscribe for more Dauntless content and hopefully Wayfinder content as soon as that game is in early access. I'll be able to start live streaming it and making some guides and tutorials for that game. If you guys haven't checked out that game, I should be getting a video up here pretty soon explaining what Wayfinder is about. And I'm going to leave a video right here explaining the basics and some tips and tricks about Hammer for anybody interested in getting into playing Hammer or are struggling to learn the fundamentals of the Hammer weapon in Dauntless. And I'll see you guys in the next video.